All right, Advent of Code day one in the books. So today was pretty straightforward, as day one usually is. You get this big list of numbers. For part one, you got to find a combination of two of them that adds up to 2020, and then multiply them together. Part two is the same, but you got to find a combination of three items that add to 2020. So here's my code, just a few lines of code for each part. And I'm using a couple extension method, helper methods that I already had written, which were really helpful for this. So my first one is .integers, which just takes this string and parses it up into an array of integers. And then I'm going to call this getCombinations helper method that I had, which will generate all combinations of two items from this list. And then I'll find the first one that sums to 2020, and then I'll multiply those two items together. Part two is basically the exact same, only getCombinations 3. And so when I first ran this, this worked, but part two took about 14 seconds to run. So after I'd solved it, I came back and I did a couple optimizations. The first thing that I noticed is the input here. Most of these numbers are pretty big, and we're trying to find three of them that sum up to 2020. There's only like a handful that are less than 1,000. So I figured the smaller numbers are probably much more likely to be part of the solution than the bigger numbers. So in the code, I ordered it from smallest to largest, and I thought that would help. And that didn't actually help at first. Because of the way my getCombinations method was written, this actually goes through and generates all possible combinations, builds this giant list, and then returns it, and then we can do a dot first on it. Right, and there is about 8 million combinations of three items. So this getCombinations was the thing taking the 14 seconds. So I made a small tweak to that. And what I did is instead of having it build up this giant list of 8 million items and then return it, I use a feature in C# called deferred execution, where you do this yield return. And what this does is it basically streams back the results only when something tries to iterate over this IEnumerable. So you call it getCombinations, doesn't actually do any work yet. And then when you call dot first, this tries to iterate over the results. And so getCombinations kind of starts streaming in one at a time. And as soon as dot first finds the match, it'll stop. So if the match is like the 100th item, getCombinations only needs to generate 100 combinations and then it stops. And this made it much, much faster. If I run it here, I generated a couple tests for this day. So part one runs in 0 time, pretty much instantly. And part two runs in 0.17 seconds as opposed to 14 seconds my first go at it. So that's pretty good. So that is day one. My code's up in GitHub. See you guys tomorrow.